Good news, Mr. Flight Instructor, sir. I just passed all my check rides. Hey, student pilot. What check ride? I don't remember ever endorsing you for one. Which check ride are you talking about? All of them. What do you mean, all of them? I got my private pilot license, my recreational pilot license, and my sport pilot license. All in one. Now that's not possible. But Mr. Flight Instructor, sir, I figured I would just go ahead and knock out all three in one shot. That's called being efficient, isn't it? You don't just collect licenses like they're like Pokemon cards or something. So I don't get all three? You have to pick the one that fits your specific goals. So which one did I get? If you're just getting started with your aviation journey, there are three possible paths to take for your very first pilot license. There's a private pilot license, the recreational pilot license, and the sport pilot license. Which one you want to get depends on your specific goals.
There are three types of pilot licenses available to all beginner pilots.
Which one you choose is based on what are your aviation goals, and each one offers different privileges and limitations.
But in terms of aviation training, only one of these paths opens the doors for further advancement. The others, not so much.
The most common type of beginner pilot license is the private pilot license.
The most common and most popular type of introductory pilot license is what is known as the private pilot license, also known as the PPL for short. To earn a PPL, you must be at least 17 years old. You must pass a FAA medical exam. You'll also need to pass a written exam, and you'll need to complete a minimum of 40 hours of flight training with a flight instructor. Now, this is just a minimum. It is fairly common for most student pilots to take upwards of 50, 60, 70, or even more hours than that in order to become fully proficient to pass the final check ride. The final check ride consists of an oral question and answer session, as well as a practice test flight, administered by a FAA certified examiner.
So what can you do with a PPL? Well, you can fly any single-engine aircraft. You can carry passengers. You can travel practically anywhere you want within the continental USA and beyond. You can even travel at night.
Now, as far as money is concerned, you as the pilot in command are allowed to split the operating expenses of each flight with your passengers, but you are not legally allowed to be paid to fly. For that, you would need a commercial pilot license.
Now here's what really sets the private pilot license apart. It's the only beginner pilot license that allows you to continue advancing your training. From here, you can go on to earn your instrument rating, your commercial pilot license, and beyond.
As for cost, most student pilots can expect to spend anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000, depending on location, aircraft rental rates, and how efficiently you train.
Another type of beginner pilot license is the sport pilot license.
The Sport Pilot License, or SPL for short, is a popular alternative to the private pilot license. The SPL is the simplest and most affordable way to start flying. It requires fewer hours of flight training. Hence, the SPL is a more cost-effective way for student pilots to earn their wings. Getting your SPL as opposed to a PPL comes with a number of trade-offs. There are greater limitations on what you can and cannot do with an SPL as opposed to a PPL. But if these limitations are compatible with your lifestyle and your aviation goals, then the SPL can be an attractive option.
Just like the private pilot license, you need to be at least 17 years old to be eligible for a sport pilot license. Now, here's where the differences come into play. Whereas you need a minimum of 40 hours of flight training for a PPL, you only need a minimum of 20 hours for an SPL. You do also need to pass a written test, as well as a check ride, which consists of both oral and as practical exams. One major advantage with the SPL is that you do not need an FAA medical certificate. You do not need a medical exam. This can be advantageous for those aspiring pilots who might otherwise be disqualified from getting a private pilot license due to any medically disqualifying conditions. All you need is a valid U.S. driver's license.
So, what are the limitations of a sport pilot license? And what are the privileges you can and you can't exercise with it? With a sport pilot license, you can fly small, simple aircraft defined by performance-based limits, primarily lower stall speeds and reduced complexity, typically with up to 2 seats, allowing you to carry 1 passenger. You can operate during the day under visual flight rules. You can even fly cross-country, as far as the aircraft is physically able to take you.
However, there are clear limitations. You cannot fly at night, you must remain in visual weather conditions, and you typically must stay below 10,000 feet MSL or 2,000 feet AGL, whichever is higher. You also cannot fly into Class Bravo, Class Charlie, or Class Delta controlled airspace, unless you earn additional endorsements from your flight instructor. You also cannot fly for compensation or hire, and you're limited to flying single-engine, non-complex aircraft only.
This means that the aircraft must not have retractable landing gear, it should not have constant speed propellers, and should not be equipped with any high-performance systems. Most importantly, this license does not lead directly to advanced ratings like instrument or commercial. The cost for obtaining a sport pilot license typically ranges from $6,000 to $10,000, depending on location and training efficiency. So while the sport pilot license offers a fast and affordable way to start flying, it's designed primarily for recreational use, not as a long-term aviation career path.
All right, we're part of the way through the list. I just wanted to take a brief moment to invite you to hit the like button if you're finding the content of this video to be helpful. And be sure to hit the subscribe button as we will be producing more content for aspiring aviation enthusiasts like you. Another type of beginner pilot license is the recreational pilot license.
The Recreational Pilot License, or RPL for short, is a lesser-known option that sits somewhere between the sport pilot and private pilot licenses. Similar to the other licenses, you must be at least 17 years old and pass both a written test as well as an oral and practical check ride. The RPL requires a minimum of 30 hours of flight training, which is more than what is required for the sport pilot license, but less than what is required for the PPL.
As with the sport pilot license, the type of aircraft you can fly is subject to certain limitations. It must be a single-engine aircraft. The engine must be rated at no more than 180 horsepower. The aircraft may have no more than 4 seats. It must be a simple aircraft, nothing complex like a landing gear or constant speed propeller.
With the recreational pilot license, there are a number of limitations imposed on the pilot as well. You are only allowed to bring one passenger on board the airplane with you. You are not allowed to fly more than 50 nautical miles from your departure airport, unless you receive additional cross-country flight training and an endorsement from your flight instructor. You are only allowed to fly during the daytime, in visual meteorological conditions. And just like the sport pilot license, the recreational pilot license does not serve as a pathway to more advanced certifications, like an instrument rating or commercial pilot license.
The cost for a recreational pilot license typically runs anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000. Because of these limitations, relatively fewer people pursue the recreational pilot license, considering that both the sport and the private pilot licenses offer greater flexibility.
All right, you've made it this far into the video. As a token of appreciation, I invite you to click on the link in the description below this video where you can get a free download of the Private Pilot Checklist Toolkit. For a deeper dive into the different types of beginner pilot licenses, be sure to subscribe to our channel to get notified as we will be adding more content on these topics into this playlist right here.